Today we're going to do a little bit different video. We're going to do a video on something that anybody can build, and I'm sure a lot of people have. Everybody has a different way of doing it, but this, I took 4 different designs and basically made it my own. Now, it's really basically simple. This is all built out of stuff that I had laying around that I've been collecting over the years. I didn't buy anything except for just 2 bolts. Everything else I had laying here. I took 2 pieces of angle iron, the 3.5 by 3 by 1/4 inch. I took the first piece and I actually welded it to some square tubing that I had. It's 2x3 square tubing. Just made 2 T's out of it and welded that piece of angle iron to it. That way it would sit up where I could see what I was doing. Then I capped the ends with these 2 pieces of flat metal. I drilled 2 holes through here, right in front of the edge of the first piece of angle iron. Now the second piece is 2 inches longer than the first piece. You have to have a way to make it pivot. So what I did, I just took 2 7/16 bolts, ran them in there, welded them on both sides with this piece clamped to the first piece so that it was flat right here. This piece actually came off I think a Kubota tractor bucket. It's the cutting edge. I actually got it in a bunch of junk that I bought at an auction years ago, and it sat outside, rusted up. I took time, cleaned it all up. These 3 pieces were actually, one went in the middle, one went in each end to reinforce this cutting edge. Now it was way too long, so I cut it off. Now on the bottom of the angle iron, I drilled a hole straight through the cutting edge and the bottom of the angle iron, and then I took 2 3/4 inch nuts, stacked them on a bolt, and I welded them solid. I got 1 on each side, and that nut is welded tight to the angle iron. Then I took 2 3/4 inch bolts, screwed them in there, and this is actually the top of the bolt right here. Now, in order to make the top plate lift on the brake, I took a piece of angle iron, welded on here over top of the bolt. Then I set a 3/4 nut on here, welded it tight, just took a piece of rebar, round stock, stuck it in there and welded it tight so that when you screw this up, it lifts. You watch, it'll lift the plate up. That way you're not trying to take your fingers, try to pick it up. I've seen guys build these things and they use basically the same thing I did, screws, but they didn't make a way you could lift it. So they're standing there, they're trying to pick it up by this and stick it in there, and it's a pain. Now I just took 1/2 inch round stock, bent it, welded it on here, welded on here. I set these pieces on there to reinforce this piece. So instead of 1/2 inch, I got 1 inch of steel at each one of these contact points. That keeps this from ever flexing. It's not gonna flex. I've been up to 8 or 16 gauge steel with this thing, and it just plays with it. My limitation, it's only 4 foot long. That's exactly what I made it. The other piece right here, this is just one of them pivots, swivels on these bolts here on the end. I put one on here, and I did have to tweak this just a little bit. This is just 2 pieces of pipe laid on there, welded on the sides. I actually put a piece of 1/2 inch steel underneath them to get them back away from this edge, so that when you leave it down, the handles are not hitting the legs. Makes it easier to grab them. Now this brake really, it's not what you call a super accurate. You can't make more than 2 bends with it because it's not a finger brake. You can't take this apart like you can a finger brake. Finger brake, they come down on an angle, about 45-degree angle, and you can take pieces out. You can make 6, 8, 7 bends if you want to. Whatever you want to do. Now, I prefer this because for me it was economical. It does what I need it to do. Now, once I got this done, I thought, I'm pretty much set for sheet metal. Wrong. I decided I'm going to get me a shrinker stretcher and a bead roller. So now you start talking, building more stands, more stuff sitting around in the garage. I don't have a whole lot of room to spare as it is. You look around here and you can see I got anything and everything in here, but space is not one of those things that I have in here. So I go to one of my favorite stores, Eastwood, and everybody is going to say why Eastwood is because if I have a problem with something, I call them and they will answer my questions. Some places you buy stuff, you don't get that kind of service. So I just took a piece of 6-inch cheap frame, that's what it was off of, a truck frame, and a 2-inch adapter. This is actually a trailer hitch adapter. You can buy them at Tractor Supply, and this is Tractor Supply. They're the only 2 things I bought. Everything else I had laying around. Now, I can pull this pin and take this completely off. The only thing that'll be left on the brake will be that piece. And since I'm working on this truck, I need to be able to shrink, stretch stuff once in a while. And these are very unique tools. Okay, when you go to the stretcher, if you watch the jaws when they come down, they will actually move the metal apart. Now, just the opposite with the shrinker, it pulls the metal together and makes it smaller. Makes a nice tight radius on something, or you can go the other way and make a wide radius on something, depending on whatever you're working on. Now, I can take this off. I can put the handles on. I don't keep them on here because it's just something else in the road. Whenever I'm ready to use it, I'll stick a handle in it. I keep them right here in the workbench. It's not hard to do. They just snap in. There you go. And then you can stand here. I can turn this any direction I want it. Like that. I can stand out here. I can turn it around. Use this one. And then when I'm done, just take the handle out. Put it over here under the workbench. And then lift this off. Put it back under the workbench. Now, everybody on the internet that I've seen has a bead roller. Now, most of them are motorized. This one's not motorized. Okay? Every one I've seen that anybody's done anything with, the bead roller's mounted down here. You're not sitting in a chair running a bead roller, you're standing up. Right here's where you want to look. Okay? Because that's where your metal's going to go through. Now, they don't come with this crank on them. I made that. Put that on there myself. And if you look at the back side of this thing, it's got two pieces of 1x3 welded on right there. And this is a piece of two pieces of flat 3/8 that are welded to the pedestal. Because what happens with these, I don't care where you get it, they bend. Okay, you can actually flex them doing this. And when that does, it creates a bad bead because these don't line up where you want them to. So, I've seen guys messing with these things, do anything and everything with them. This is not real expensive to do. It's just, like I said, it's all stuff I had laying around in the garage. Now, it does come with a handle. But trust me, when you're working by yourself like I am most of the time, that handle, you can't reach across here and crank this handle and hold a piece of sheet metal and see what you're doing. It's not going to happen. It's next to impossible to do. Now, I'm sure somebody out there is going to say, I do it all the time. Well, I did the first couple times I run the bead roller. But I thought, this is not going to be for me. Now, this is a steering wheel. I think it was off of S10 or something like that. Cost me a whole $5. Now, to make it clear on this, I just ground a little bit of the rubber off. Then I went to Tractor Supply and bought a 7/8 inch sleeve. That's all that is. And then I set that on there like that. Tighten the bolt on the flat spot of the shaft. And then you can stand here and you can turn this way, or you can turn it this way. You still only got one hand, but you don't have to look for a handle that's going way back here. This is right here where you can see it. You can turn it as slow or as fast as you need to. It works. It just works. I can't tell you anymore. I've seen guys take the time to make one of these with a pipe bender. I thought, I'm not going to buy a pipe bender just to make a round circle that I got to weld spokes in. What has round circumference and spokes in it? Steering wheel. So it seemed like the simplest thing to me. And it's really convenient that I can just set everything right here. I can take that off, put this back. It's out of the way. Everybody goes, what about dies? This is real simple. Okay? I just took a drill, drilled a hole, put a 3/8 tap in there, tapped it out, screwed the bolt in, and then I put a nut on here just to lock it in there. So if I want to take them off, it's not like you welded them on, you got to cut them off. If I want to take them off and do something else different with it, I can just unscrew them. Take them out of there, do whatever I want to do with them. But to me, that's, now I bent each bolt up a little bit, and the dies would stay on there without doing anything else. But I just stick a snap clip in there like that. That way nobody's gonna knock them off on somebody's toes. I don't know about most people, but I have kids that come into the garage once in a while. Not just neighbor kids, but my grandchildren and their friends, and they want to see what I'm doing. They'll come in, and the last thing I want is something to fall on one of them. So what I'll do, I try to make it as safe, not only for me or anybody else that wants to borrow it, but also for anybody who comes in just to see what I'm doing. Another thing I did with this bead roller, when I put this on here, there's a hole that was already in the bead roller here. If you can see, I drilled and tapped this piece, this bearing cap, and put a 1/4 inch bolt in there, and then I just tapped this hole. It was already there, and then I put, it's a piece of common spring, but it picks this up. Anybody who's ever run a bead roller before is going to tell you the same thing. As soon as you want to take that piece of metal out of there, that's going to be stuck down. It won't come back up. Now, you got to keep this top bolt just finger snug. The bottom one you want tight, because you don't want that shaft to wobble around. That's why these gears don't mesh exactly perfect, like say in a car transmission or a rear end. They got to have a little bit of play in them for this shaft going up and down. Now, if it wouldn't go up and down, you couldn't adjust how deep you cut your beads, or when you loosen it, it comes up. You can get in there, pull your sheet metal out, move it, put it to where you want it, run it back through. Now this is only an 18-inch throat from here to here. That means if you got a 38-inch piece, you're not going to be able to reach the metal of it. So you're kind of limited there. That's why a lot of people are going to the 46-inch throat, which means this is another, what, 9 inches longer, 10 inches longer. And then you get more flex. So they're making it out of not 1/2 inch steel, they're making it out of 3/4 inch steel, and they're making it 2 pieces with spacers between them, which is actually like building a truss for a house. It makes it twice as strong, and it will hold up a lot better than the single 1/2 inch piece. Now, a lot of people think that that's overkill, but trust me, if you're into really making a lot of intricate beads on something, like doing an interior out of all sheet metal, first thing I would probably do is do away with this and motorize this. Now, I started to motorize it when I first got it with a garage door opener motor. But you would think it lifts a garage door, but it's not strong enough on a slow speed. Now, garage door opener motors are DC, which means you can vary the amount of voltage going into them to make them run faster or slower. So I thought, that's a perfect example of being able to control the speed by just varying how much voltage goes into it. Now, it takes a special transformer to reduce 110 down to 12 volt. DC is what they're supposed to run on. Now, they will turn at 6 volt and they will turn at 3 volt. but you can grab a hold of the shaft with your bare fingers at 3 volts and stop it from turning. So it's not going to have enough to do this. And it turns too fast at 12 volt. So that's where I'm at with that. Now, Eastwood does make an adapter kit that actually bolts on here, and a motor hangs out here, has a foot control to control how fast it goes, and it makes a nice bead roller if you're going to do a lot of bead rolling. I've used this thing maybe 4 or 5 times since I modified it and made the changes that I've pointed out to you. So it doesn't pay for me to worry about really making it motorized. You know, you're talking probably $350 to $400 to put a factory motor on there. Yes, I could hobble together a Harbor Freight drill and put a chain on it with a couple sprockets, but one thing I will not do is weld anything to this shaft, because once you weld to this shaft, you're pretty much screwed unless you can replace the shaft if you ever want to change it to something different. So that's pretty much the end of the bead rolling. The shrinker stretcher, the brake, it's not something you use every day. Now, I'm working on the old truck bed here, and I use this brake probably 8 times this week, whereas it sat here for 2 months and I never used it once. Now, the bead roller, I haven't used it much since I finished the kick panels and the little compartment in the cab. But I got some beads to roll on the bed, but that'll be in a future video. I want to thank you for watching this video. I'm sure it's not what you expected. It's not a video that I would make normally, but I've had a lot of my friends ask me where I bought the brake. One walked in one day and I was using the bead roller. He said, "Who made your stand?" I said, "I'm a welder. I think I can make it myself." Same way with the shrinker stretcher. A lot of people put pedals on them. I could do that, but it's just going to clutter up more stuff that I got to move around. I don't use it very often. It's nice when I need it. So each person has to adjust to what they're going to do. If you're just going to bend a couple pieces of sheet metal once in a while, yeah, go to Harbor Freight, buy one of those $300 specials, and watch it crinkle. You're not going to bend this thing. But I guess if you try to bend something like 1/4 inch with it, it probably wouldn't take it too well, but it'll take up to probably 10 gauge. I've done 16 with it pretty regular. Matter of fact, a lot of this on this truck is 14, and I bent some with it. Now, it takes a little bit more than just your casual when you're bending 18 or 20 gauge. You can grab one handle and pull it up. You get into something a little bit heavier, you're going to use both hands. If you got any comments, put them in there. I'll look at them. I'll get back with you. Thank you.